Welcome, Gunrunner.
Hello everybody, Kieran aka the Laird here, and I have a new Laird's Lowdown for you, and I've not done one of these for quite a while actually because of Christmas and stuff. I took a couple of weeks off and went away, and yeah, had a lot of fun, and yeah, it was a very hectic time, but I really enjoyed Christmas this year. Really good time. Got some great presents, as those who follow my channel would have seen, because I posted some of them up for you to see. I hope you all had a great Christmas as well and got some good presents as well. But the topic today is not something Christmas related, and it is somewhat of a continuation, I suppose, of some of my previous Laird's Lowdown blogs that I've done. Because it's a subject I've talked quite a lot about, because it's something quite dear to my heart. Because everyone knows I'm a huge Atari fan. I'm wearing another Atari hoodie today. And I've talked a lot about the modern Atari and what they're doing and how they're embracing their retro legacy. I've talked about, their new consoles like the 7800 Plus, which I've got literally to the side of me just now. I've been playing on it loads over Christmas. Wonderful console. I'll be looking at that on the channel in due course. And I've spoken a lot about what they're doing with, their modern games, their remakes, and their IP acquisitions. And this video is actually going to bring all of those together for the subject I'm going to talk about. And that is what, in my opinion, are the 5 games that the new Atari should do next. Now, there's been lots of stuff coming out from them over the past couple of years as they've grown their new focus into doing more retro stuff. But actually, they've been quite quiet with games of late. On the run up to Christmas, we saw very few games coming out from Atari. I'm trying to think what the last one was that they did. I mean, we haven't had a recharged game for ages, which is quite strange. Because at one point, they were coming out at a really rapid pace, those recharged games, and they're great. I mean, I love them. So it seems strange that we haven't had one of those for a while now. We had the DLC, of course, for Atari 50. That was something, I suppose, wasn't a completely new game, but that was good. Actually, there's been lots of stuff in Digital Eclipse, which, of course, Atari own now, like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game, which is magnificent, brilliant game. So we've had some good stuff from them. And apart from that, we haven't not a great deal from Atari themselves. So they did have released a stack of stuff for the 2600 and 7800 Plus. We've had like the M Network cartridge, the Real Sports cartridge. We've had some new 7800 games. Actually, I've bought a couple of the new 7800 games. So that's quite cool. So I'll show them on the channel probably at some point as well. I was going to try and grab it, but it's too far away from me. But I'll show it in my 7800 video anyway. Yeah, I've bought some of them, and they're great. And so I want to try and support what they're doing. But in terms of sort of new games for PC and console, not a lot at all, really. I'm trying to think what the last one actually did release. I mean, we had the new sprint game, Neo Sprint, on Steam, but that was quite a while ago now, wasn't it? I can't think of a lot else. I mean, and that sort of leads me on to the next bit, because they have teased a few. So they have teased that they're releasing the new Fatal Run game, set way in the future, very futuristic looking, kind of reminded me a lot of that Jason Statham film, Death Race. The look that they've given to that new Fatal Run game. Actually, I'll run the trailer in the corner so you can see it if you haven't seen it already. It looks really good though. I'm really impressed with the way it's been presented and the great look it's got. Really appeals to me. It's definitely something I'll want to buy when it comes out. I think it looks absolutely fantastic, and it's a great way to update one of their old games, probably one of their lesser known games, because a lot of people don't know Fatal Run. I mean, it came out for the 2600 and the 7800. It's kind of a bit like a cross between Mad Max and Road Blasters, I suppose. Very Road Blasters like, but the elements of Mad Max where you're trying to save humanity and visiting the towns and stuff. Yeah, really good game, very underrated game, Fatal Run, actually. So it was nice to see them sort of pick up one of their lesser known properties and do something new with it. And they have been teasing that there's a new Roller Coaster Tycoon game coming. So they've been re-releasing the old ones, and they announced that they'd signed Chris Sawyer up, and they'd secured the rights to all the Roller Coaster Tycoon games, and that Chris Sawyer was going to work with them, and they have kind of been teasing that quite a bit. So I've got a feeling that they have got a new Roller Coaster Tycoon game coming, even though they haven't officially announced it. But the way they're constantly talking about Roller Coaster Tycoon on social media and stuff, and the interviews they released with Chris Sawyer and all that stuff, it makes me think that there's something coming. So I wouldn't be surprised if that would be one of their next announcements. But as I say, nothing on the recharge side, which is kind of strange. Just it's going to be more for Atari 50, I think, is the only other thing that they have announced. Obviously, we're waiting on the Intellivision IP, for example. That's something we think that will be coming. Probably something like Atari 50, but Intellivision. Yeah, so there's lots of stuff. I mean, obviously the first console will think they've added new games as well to what they're doing as well at the moment. So that's pretty cool. So I got distracted there for a moment because someone was at my front door and I had to go and answer it. Postman. That really threw me off, that did. It all seems to happen when I'm recording. But I digress. Yeah, so this video is about what I think they should do next, because they've been quite quiet, and what I think they should come up with in terms of releases. So I've picked out 5 things I think they should do. And what I've tried to do is I've tried to look at their strategy, and I've tailored my 5 so it fits in really well with what they've already been doing in terms of what they release and for what. So the first game that I think Atari should be looking at is a sequel to an old game that they made. They don't seem to talk about a lot, but they have actually spoke about a little bit recently, and I did mention this in the beginning part because I wanted to say for this segment. So you might remember, if you owned an Atari Jaguar, or if you own an Atari Jaguar, a rather cool little exclusive called Atari Karts, which is obviously a really blatant rip-off of Mario Kart. One of the rarest commercial games for the system because it was released quite late and only got a small run. It was recently announced by Atari in cooperation with Songbird Productions that they were reissuing Atari Karts, and they were doing a new run of it for all the people who weren't able to get hold of it. Which is really cool to see, because it's been one of the rarest Jaguar games for a long time. I was lucky I picked up mine when Jaguar games were still going for stupidly cheap. But in recent years, it goes for several £100 on eBay, easily for a boxed one, So that was part of the agreement between Atari and Songbird. They've done a couple, because they also did the release of a fully finished version of Centipede for the Lynx. That was previously only a prototype. So Atari again teamed up with Songbird to get Centipede out for the Lynx, and they're doing a similar thing now with Atari Karts, reissuing that, and I think we'll see more of those rare games being reissued. I think Fight for Life will probably be another one that we'll see being done in that way. And again, Atari 8, of course, it was an Atari 50, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new run of that, because that was the last the last Jaguar game released by Atari, because there were some afterwards that were released by Telegames, of course, which were also official. So it was the last Jaguar game released by Atari, basically, was Fight for Life. So it was surprised they got re-released. But going back to Atari Karts, so I think now would be the time to make a sequel. It would be brilliant if they made a sequel, because there's all this IP they own now. I think they could do a really, really good selection of characters. And actually, I've made a mock-up of the characters that I think they should include. So I'm going to put that on the screen so you can see it, as I'm talking about it. So obviously there's some pretty obvious people that they can put in it, like, Centipede would obviously be a really obvious one to put in it. Bentley Bear, because obviously he was the only actual Atari character who was in the original Atari Karts, which everyone always thought was a real missed opportunity. They literally only put in Bentley Bear, and all the rest of the characters were completely made up. So you've got Bentley Bear. I'd put in Centipede. Then you've got some characters, some other characters, like I'd have the cowboy from Outlaw. You could have the guy from Berserk, because of course Atari own those properties from Stern. You could have Bubsy the Bobcat, because obviously Atari own him now. Again, they owned him, sold him, got back again. I believe when they sold the Accolade stuff and then reacquired most of it, which I'll talk about again in a little bit more detail in a moment, because that leads me on to another one of my entries. You've got Major Havoc, of course, has to be in there. Charlie Chuck from Food Fight, another one that has to be in there, especially since they did a new Food Fight game quite recently. That was one of the more recent things that Atari did, actually, was the new Food Fight game. So I think that would be a good one. Charlie Chuck. Then I'm just looking at the screen next to me because I brought it up on the screen so I wouldn't forget any. Louis from Scrapyard Dog, that'd be quite cool. I mean, he's only have got one game that appeared on the 7800 Lynx, but I think that would be a nice throwback to put him in there. And that was my 8 main characters, and then I picked out 4 guys I'd have as unlockable characters. So I'm trying not to sneeze because I've got a really sneezy nose at the moment. It's driving me mad. You've also got, I'd have the dragon from Adventure as an unlockable character. I'd have the bat from Pong as an unlockable character. Of course, Atari did do that new Pong adventure thing with him in, that kind of Pong character. Recently, that was a pretty cool product that they did. I put Nolan Bushnell in there, which I think would be really cool to have him in there. What I'd actually do is, for Nolan Bushnell, for his custom vehicle, I'd have Nolan Bushnell, but he would be in the tank from Combat. I think that would be really cool to do that, because obviously that's one of Atari's oldest games. It's really tank in the arcades before being Combat on the 2600. So I have Nolan Bushnell in the tank from Combat, and the last unlockable character I'd add would be the Intellivision Running Man. Then you can get the Intellivision connection in there as well, because I think that would be a cool thing to have in there. So that's my 10 characters that I'd have in Atari Karts 2. Please let me know if you've got any other good suggestions of characters Atari own that they could put in to an Atari Karts 2. But I think that'd be a great thing for them to do. Really fun karting games. They always go down well. Quite easy to produce. You've got lots of great characters. You could create some really good worlds for them to race through. I mean, really good if you could obviously race through, the World and Adventure, or you see the Crystal Castles in the background, or a garden for the centipede level. Do you know what I mean? There's loads of cool different arenas you could do, Atari themed ones that would work really, really well for a game like that, I think. So that was my first one, and I already mentioned Bubsy and Accolade, so we'll lead on that for the second one. I think an Accolade downloadable for Atari 50 would make a lot of sense, because Atari owned Accolade from acquiring them. Infogrames acquired Accolade back in the day. I spoke a lot about it in the IP video. So Atari owned them because of Atari being Infogrames, basically. They sold off loads of the Accolade IP to Pico Interactive and a few other people as well. For example, the Test Drive IP was sold separately. We've just had a new Test Drive game recently, actually, which actually looked really promising, but Soda Crown, that's what it's called, but was released very, very buggy, and now they've been getting a lot of criticism for releasing something so buggy, and they've been trying to desperately fix it, which is a shame, because it actually looked quite cool, but not Atari, unfortunately. So they no longer own that IP. But they sold off lots of the IP, bought it back, including Bubsy. Saying Bubsy again, they did the Bubsy collection. Actually, it was something they did. That was just re-releases. It wasn't something new that they did. An Accolade collection, because there's lots you could do with that, because there's some Accolade games for the 7800. Because, for example, Mean 18 Golf, that was an Accolade game that we had in the 7800. I'm trying to think what the other Accolade games were on the 7800. I'm sure there was more than one. But Mean 18 is the first one that sprung to mind there. You have got loads of the ST, if they choose to add ST into Atari 50, which I think they should, which they haven't done so far. And loads of the Atari 8-bit, obviously, with Accolade, because you've got stuff like Hardball, for example, from Accolade's back catalogue on the Atari 8-bit. But there's loads more Accolade stuff, especially the simulation games and stuff that they could add. Ace of Aces, that's another one actually. It's on the 7800 and Atari 8-bit. That was the other one I was trying to think of. So there's loads of stuff like that. And then even into the Jaguar years, when Accolade started to specialise a bit on doing sports games, they did. There's also the Jaguar Bubsy game, which they can put on it. So that would go on there, which is obviously a Jaguar exclusive. Then there is the prototype of Barclay Shut Up and Jam, which they just removed the Barclay bit and call it Shut Up and Jam, which is what Pico did when they re-released it on the Evercade. So that prototype's 100% complete, so Atari could easily put that on there as well. But it's two different prototypes of Shut Up and Jam, which is quite interesting. There's one that looks like the Mega Drive version, and there's another much later one, which is the one that everyone knows, which is the sort of all done up with better graphics and stuff. And somewhere out there's a prototype of Hardball 3, or Hardball 4 even, I think it is actually on the Jag. But no one knows what's happened to that, so it's a shame, because according to, I spoke to somebody who worked on Hardball 4, and apparently he said it was pretty much complete, so he doesn't know what happened to it. Very strange. And you've also got, I think Brett Hull Hockey was another Accolade one as well. Although that would be difficult because of the licensing with the NHL. It was officially NHL licensed, so I think that would be probably too difficult to even modify to get on there. Although, that prototype was released by Jaguar Sector 3 and Jaguar Sector 2 even, and they released it as Jaguar Hockey to get around that. But when you actually started up the game, instead of all the NHL logos and everything, I think it'd be too hard to remove all references to the NHL from that. But there's certainly lots of scope there in terms of doing an Accolade add-on for Atari 50. It's an interesting story, Accolade, as well, because they were formed out of ex-Activision people, and the reason why famously the name Activision was chosen was because it would have come before Atari in a phone book, because of the alphabetical order, and the reason why they chose Accolade was because it would have come before Activision, because it was a double C. So there's a really interesting story there, and the connection back to Activision, I think, which would be included. An interesting story about there as well, actually, how Accolade and created Test Drive, which Test Drive, the people who created that Accolade, then jumped ship to EA and created the Need for Speed series. So Need for Speed actually came from Test Drive, which a lot of people don't seem to know. But actually, if you play the early Need for Speed game, the very first one that's on 3DO, very similar to Test Drive and Test Drive 2, the dual, very similar indeed in its style, and the cops and stuff like that. So yeah, that would be my second one, Accolade IP download. Then my third one would be a Jeff Minter game. Now I'm not specifying which, but they got together with Jeff Minter to do Tempest 4000, and it was magnificent. Such an amazing game. Still play it on my Xbox One. So good. Really good update. And obviously Tempest 2000 was incredible. And it was basically an update of that. So I'd love to see them get together with Jeff Minter to do another. I mean, they did the Jeff Minter collection. Obviously Digital Eclipse did that, who are part of Atari. So they did sort of team up with them to do that as well. But yeah, let's get Jeff Minter loose and get him to do another game. And I think the two obvious properties that I think would be really good for Jeff Minter to play around with would either be Major Havoc, because that was the next game he was supposed to do for the Jaguar back in the day. After he did Tempest 2000 and he did Defender 2000, he obviously did the VLM for the Jaguar CD. He was meant to do Major Havoc 2000, and he never got around to doing it, obviously, because of the demise of the Jaguar. And so I'd really love to see him now bring that to life and do the new Major Havoc game. And the other one that I think would be really cool for him to do would be a new Star Raiders, because he wanted to do a Star Raiders game for the Lynx, and indeed Atari announced back in the day that he was going to be doing Ultra Star Raiders, it was called, for the Lynx, but nothing ever came out of it. And there's conflicting reports. I spoke to Jeff once. He said he played around with it and started making some demos and stuff, but apparently other people have interviewed him where he said he never touched a Lynx. So I don't know. I really don't. But I know I've got an interview with him where he said that he played around with the Lynx. He was really impressed with it, and he got some demos running and started work on it. But yeah, I don't know. You don't know what to believe. Some people's memories are hazy, or they get mixed up with he might be getting the Jaguar mixed up with the Lynx, or the Panther mixed up with the Lynx or something. I don't know. But anyway, I'd love to see him let loose with Star Raiders. That'd be another one, because Atari haven't really done anything with Star Raiders, which, apart from that awful game they did years ago for Xbox and PlayStation, which we won't talk about at all. Was it Xbox, PlayStation and PC? I think it was. I'm not sure. But anyway, it was crap. So let's not talk about that. Be nice to do something good with Star Raiders. So that would be my next one. And then number 4 is something actually really, really simple, because they've been re-releasing all these homebrew stuff, and I talked about them getting together with Songbird and that as well. And one thing that stuck out to me was is that there's a really good homebrew version of Berserk for the Lynx. I've actually featured it on the channel before. It's done by Jum Hig, I think, if I remember rightly. It's called Berserkoids, and when I did my 4-play comparison for Berserk, I put it in there, and it's brilliant. It's like arcade perfect speech, and the way it's presented and everything is so good. Berserkoids is brilliant. They should just grab that, make it an official Berserk game, and release it. Probably through Songbird is how I assume they would do it, but that's another one that I'd really like them to see. It's an easy win. Just get in touch with Jum Hig. They've done lots of this with the homebrew games, especially with Bob DiCrescenzo stuff that was previously released for Atari Age. Now they're doing official Atari branded releases of it all. So get it out there. Let's do it. Let's get a an official Lynx version of Berserk out there. And then for my last one, it kind of leads on from that one exactly, which is actually a game that covers everything. It ties back to previous entries that I've talked about already, but let's do a new Bubsy game, right? Make him Atari's mascot because they own him, and let's get Bubsy on everything, right? So let's do a 7800 Bubsy game. Get Bob DiCrescenzo on the case. He did the brilliant Bentley Bears Crystal Quest, so let's get him on the case for a Bubsy game for the 7800, a Bubsy game for the Lynx. That would be really cool to see. Those formats get a new Bubsy game, wouldn't it? Really, really cool to see. I think it'd be a bit beyond the 2600, but you could certainly do a good 7800 Bubsy game, and then it'd be compatible with both the 2600 plus and 7800 plus. And let's get a Lynx Bubsy as well. So let's get Bubsy across all the Atari formats. That'd be really cool. I think I'd love to see them do that and make him a sort of an iconic character for them. Atari never had a mascot character really. Bentley Bear was the closest thing they got. So let's make Bubsy's new mascot character. Everyone remembers Bubsy, good or bad. He's become sort of a cult figure, and they do seem to have embraced him recently. So let's see more of that from Atari and Bubsy. But that's it really. That's my selection of the 5 games that I think Atari should do. I'd absolutely love to hear your suggestions down in the comments about what games that you think Atari should be doing, who should be doing them, what any DLC they should release for Atari 50 or whatever. I always love to hear your suggestions and comments, and create some great discussion down below this video. So as always, I thank you for watching. I've been the Laird, and I'll see you all again for another one very soon. Bye bye.